Hello, welcome back. Here we are, XLN3. I'm quite indubitably your host here with heavy analyst Zephyr and mid analyst Doctor. Hi,
Hello,
guys.
Hello.
welcome back. We're still here.
As
They haven't
always,
fired us yet, which is always a plus on bad
yeah,
side
They
stuff
haven't
with
paid
honestly.
Jake.
us yet either.
Wait,
Well,
what?
that's
We're
why
trying.
you should all donate money to our Patreon so that money can be spent on its obvious destination, me. Um,
Oh,
yeah, right? Isn't that the most obvious place for uh
I may
excellency to
need
start
to
spending money?
renegotiate my contract with Jake.
Oh
Uh,
no.
I
hmm.
wish I had a contract. It's just a
Oh.
verbal agreement currently.
Oh, come on, Zephyr.
Oh my
You got to get at
goodness.
least in DMs. Come on now. You know better.
I'm thinking. I don't actually know of anything. Whatever, who cares? We're on the XLN3 podcast and we got other things to talk about.
We do indeed. In fact, possibly the games of League of Legends might have a place in
Yes.
this podcast today.
Maybe this week. I know it's
Maybe.
been kind of wonky the last couple, but
They find their way in eventually, Doctor, even if it's weird.
don't we all?
All right. Well,
I,
speaking of weird, let's talk about mid first. How's
Why
that
is
for a
mid
transition?
this week was perfectly normal. We had
Was
four
it?
2-0s. Yeah, we had 4 2-0s. Everybody did exactly what we expected them to do. We had our streamed matchup this week between the two tied for first teams, Catalyst Frost versus Glaive Black. And Glaive Black just really asserted themselves as the dominant team here in mid league. So, I mean, yeah, pretty normal.
All right. I mean, well, congratulations to Glaive Black, but to be perfectly honest, I mean, I'm gonna be perfectly honest. I was rooting for Catalyst Blaze a little bit on this one. I'm a little disappointed in that result.
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting matchup because game one actually was the longest game Glaive Black had ever played in mid league. It was like 33 minutes, 34 minutes, I believe. Let me pull it up here again. It was actually
Sweet.
37 minutes. So almost a normal League of Legends game there.
Almost.
This doesn't look right.
Um, Maybe I clicked the wrong thing, but I am looking at
Yeah,
a
me too.
23-minute game and a 27-minute game.
Looks like you were wrong.
We're all wrong.
No.
We don't know what we're
Yeah,
talking about.
well,
Thank
'cause
you for
so
tuning in.
in my Discord here, I clicked the week 6 matchup between Glaive Black and Catalyst Frost, and it brought me to Shen Volibear, which I can tell you didn't happen here in this series. So I'm gonna have to pull up
Fascinating.
the Twitch link real quick. I don't know what happened there. Maybe I'm on the wrong Discord, but
You know what? Yes, welcome to XLN3, where we also don't know what happened in mid and heavy
You know what?
league.
well,
Maybe
no, I know
maybe the games
exactly
didn't
what
matter, guys.
I know exactly what happened, and it was Glaive Black coming out ahead. They did a really strong draft, and even though we had some questions about it, overall it was a pretty strong draft. And it turns out that the VOD is deleted. So
Well,
Oh
I
my
guess the
god.
games just didn't happen this week.
that bodes well.
All
Good
right,
to
I found it.
know.
I found it. I found it. So yeah, let's take a look at our game one draft here. It was the Mordekaiser picked into the Ornn. So some reason we had Glaive Black able to pick up the Ornn of all things. But they also had a really strong team fighting draft. And we talked about it on the desk and we talked about it afterwards. They just played their compositions really perfectly into what Catalyst Frost was picking. And even though they got out jungled in game one, they got ahead in their other lanes far enough that they really didn't have to worry about the jungle matchup in the early game.
All right, and
How
just
long was
to iterate, um, gosh, am I going
Wow.
crazy? Was it Catalyst Frost or Catalyst Blaze?
Frost?
Frost.
Frost. Okay. You know what? I think I know what the issue might have been. Um,
confused.
But yeah, tell us a little bit.
So,
I think we
minute.
just flopped our record keeping of Blaze and Frost. I think that's what happened this week. But about the games, back to League of Legends.
Sure.
Is this a skill gap game or is this more a draft gap game?
This one definitely ended up being. Oh man, it's gonna sound mixed. I am gonna say skill gap. I don't think the drafts by Katos Frosts were bad by really any means. In game one they managed to pick up Mordekaiser, Graves, Azir, Ashe, Thresh. Like that is a strong composition. You can do a lot of really nice skirmishes with that, and things can come together really, really nicely. Their game two draft, if we look at it, it was Renekton, Graves, Ari, Senna, Braum. So a bit less good in my opinion. But overall, I think it's still a really strong composition when you can pilot it correctly. But if you go back and watch the games, what ends up happening is that they get a nice early lead, and then mid game and late game start to happen, and the Glaive Black squad just death balls it together, team fights as a cohesive unit, and uses their composition to kind of brute force victories.
All right, so I mean, that is something you're kind of allowed to do when you're able to get your hands on a really good team fighting composition. It's why people love to draft it. It's extremely easy to execute. As you said, Doctor, you can brute force your way to the end if you need to because, well, you have the good team fight. There's no reason to send anyone anywhere else if the only thing you have to do is just keep marching forward. It is a tendency bred in us League of Legends players, from our silver ARAM mid strategies.
Really?
Yeah.
That's where you
Enemy-
take this from?
I don't know. So the drafts from Frost, I feel like against any other team in the league would have worked out great. Like they had the strong early game champions, like they had Renekton, Ari, and Graves. Like they did what they needed to early. It was just that Glaive Black was able to staunch the bleeding, recollect themselves and start taking more not professional, but a more better skirmishes. I don't know
More
how else to
better.
phrase it.
More better
Yeah,
skirmishes.
more better skirmishes. I don't know how else to phrase it. Plus they start hitting level
With
6 and-
grammar.
Hey, listen,
Indeed.
not an English major. I don't know what that is.
All right. We're all extraordinary literate, folks.
Yeah, I mean, I only
What?
talk for a living, so
Are you literate or are you illiterate? I didn't get that.
We're
Me or her?
all very literate.
I do know how to read Zephyr.
Zephyr doesn't know how to hear.
Yeah, I know.
That's okay.
But
you know
so
what? If there's one thing Zephyr does know how to do, it's not have his internet die now.
Oh,
that's true.
Thank you.
I don't
That's
think
very
he actually
nice.
had anything to do with it, but
Yeah, I wasn't explicitly pressing a button for entertainment value, okay?
just unplugging the Ethernet cord every 10 minutes or so. Like
I will say on Heavy League, we were thinking about adding in a Tom Kench that would come eat me every single time my internet died.
huh,
I
it was actually
see.
very,
Honestly, that would have
very
been
interesting
adorable, and
prediction.
I would have wholly endorsed that.
I think we can still do that.
We
I
could
don't think
absolutely
My
do
internet's
that.
good, guys.
You know what? What we need to do is we need to give every single one of your producers
Just slowly remove me.
an eat Zephyr button where you just press the button and then Tom Kench comes and eats Zephyr and you don't have to deal with Zephyr anymore.
Actually, hold up. Do you know the show No Whammy? Is that what it's called?
No.
Are you talking big or no whammy?
Big Bucks No Whammy. I don't
Big
know the
Bucks
name
no
of the
whammy,
show.
big bucks no
Yeah,
whammy, big bucks no whammy, and then it goes around the little circle, and they have
yeah.
those little red little gremlin things.
Exactly. We can make different little
Oh my
gremlins for
god,
the
I
League of
love
Legends
those.
characters to just remove you. So like it'll be Tom Kench, Skarner pops in and impales you. You get charmed off the screen. Holy Jake, I need a raise, man. I'm just giving you production
Hold on,
gold.
this is gold. I haven't heard big bucks no whammies in a long time.
I've no clue what this is. What?
It's a Sunday night game show hosted by
Oh my
the blonde
god.
from Scrubs, not the main character blonde, the other one.
Well, I'm
Kate
thinking of the
something.
old version.
No, it's actually new. Like last year, it came back on Sunday night
I'm
TV.
so confused.
Really?
Hold on, let me
How,
Google it
how
real
does
quick.
Zephyr know that he's younger than me?
Press Your
Maybe he has,
Luck.
Press Your Luck. There we go.
Press Your Luck was the
It's
name
an
of it.
American television show.
Not as good as Whose Line Is It Anyways, but you know what? We'll
Well,
deal with it.
nothing is, truly.
That's also true.
I agree.
All right,
But
well, now that we have a strong consensus on whose line is it anyways,
these are
I
all
do
old
believe it's Doctor's line. Because in order to go off on this tangent, I cut you off about saying something about mid-league, the thing we're actually supposed to be talking about.
No, we don't.
Do you happen to recall what you were going to say?
Not really, but I mean,
Fantastic.
if we're gonna take a look at just our featured match this week, it was the battle for first place, Catalyst Frost versus Glaive Black. I mentioned that Demon, the Glaive Black jungler, had actually been out jungled in game one. Catalyst Frost Red actually did a really amazing job on that Graves, invading the Hecarim, making sure that they were not able to take their buffs as effectively. And I actually called it out on stream, but I was like, Hecarim's garbage. Like, this is the worst jungle pick ever. And not 20 minutes later, Demon completes a Trinity Force and starts rampaging through the team. So he really made me eat my words on that one. But game two, he picked my favorite jungler, Sejuani, and just absolutely curb stomped him. Like, it's so interesting to see how the jungle matchup pre-patch was working out. And it's fun. I like jungle. I don't know if I'm gonna like it anymore because it sounds pretty busted.
Right, because
I don't know what I like
you
anymore.
were, well, hopefully more than just you, Doctor, but these games were being played right before the new patch.
Yeah, wasn't Heavy on new
Oh,
patch?
Heavy was
Heavy was
on
on
new
new
patch. I didn't
patch.
realize you guys weren't on new patch. We had
Nope.
to.
We had
We
old
had a
No.
patch.
fun Thursday, man.
Yeah,
Ugh.
So
we
the
were pretty lucky
podcast
there.
the podcast today spans two metas, which is interesting. So
Well,
let's
not really. Not
well
exactly.
Well,
well
so like mid league was like 12 hours before patch. Heavy was like 36 hours after patch. So like there
They're
wasn't.
not adjusted at
Yeah,
all either.
like mid had a meta, not that we follow it, and then Heavy was just like Fiesta.
fiestas
Heavy
are
was
very fun,
Fiesta.
to be fair. You
The other good
know?
thing about mid is
Sure.
that as we head into our final week here, this is our last week for regular season.
Right.
We actually have a pretty fluid standings. We've talked about it a couple weeks now, how there was just so much bunching up of the teams just collectively around that third and fourth place. Now we do have a pretty spread out one. We have Drift and Goliath, the only tie left in that fourth seed. But that'll probably be decided this week as we do have Drift going up against Glaive Black. So our condolences. Sorry, guys. And then Goliath are playing Frost. So we might actually still have a tie for that fourth spot, depending on which Frost shows up today or Tuesday.
Is there any tiebreakers that are going to form out of next week's games? Do you know? Because there's like currently some tiebreakers in Heavy League, but no matter what, it's not going to end in any major tiebreaker, but it is going to bring things really close based off of what I don't. I'll explain it when we get there. Basically,
Yeah, I'm gonna have to see the head-to-head between Goliath and Drift, which I'm looking for right now. I just saw it. So Goliath actually took it over Drift. So not really knowing the rules exactly, but knowing how generally these rules work, with Goliath having the head-to-head over Drift, they would come out ahead in the tiebreak.
we
Yeah,
go by head to
that's sort of
head.
the standard ruling I'm used to as well. Admittedly, I am not an expert in the XLNC rule docs. Because I don't have to be. There are plenty of rule docs I do have to be an expert in, so when I don't, I do not read them.
That okay.
Sure.
All right. Glad to know.
Read contracts before you sign them, kids.
And if you don't know how to read, have a lawyer do it.
Indeed.
Zephyr.
All right,
Well.
so, Doctor, do you happen to know what game's getting streamed next week?
So I found out that we actually had posted all of these in the Discord, and I spent the last 6 weeks just unaware. But it looks like our stream matchup this week is going to be the South Dakota Coyotes facing off against Glacial Rising Phoenix. So I think that should be a pretty good matchup. I think that this is going to be one of the closer matches that the Coyotes have been able to, really see. They're both at the bottom of the standings right now. If the Coyotes end up taking this, then they would actually be tied 1-5, or sorry, 1-6, excuse me. So it should be a good match. It is new patch, so I am curious which team adapts quicker. But I'm probably going to think that's actually a benefit towards the Coyotes. They've shown that they can be kind of scrambly and scrappy, and in a patch where nobody knows what the hell's going on, you can sometimes take advantage of that.
Right, absolutely. Fiestas do tend to benefit the people who are most used to thriving or doing their best to survive in chaos.
Mhm.
Definitely an interesting game to be watched. Do you have an official prediction on this, Doctor?
My official prediction is I am going to say Glacial Rising Phoenix is going to take it 2-0 over the South Dakota Coyotes. I'd love to be wrong, but I think just the way the teams have played previously and shown up to the Rift and, played, I think the Glacial Rising Phoenix team will take it. And mid-league, I think it's actually just not possible for them to go to game threes. I think just like that's part of the rules. So I'm just going to say the Glacial Rising
What a
Phoenix 2-0.
competitive league.
What a competitive league indeed. Come to
Well,
mid-league where we
it's whoever
consistently
gets
play 2/3 of the possible
Yeah, whoever
games.
gets game one, like you coin flip for game one, and then whoever gets game one gets game two. Like that's
Sure.
sounds fair to me, right?
That's
Like
Yeah,
you did all
how
the
that
league
you did all the
sounds
work to win the
It's
coin
that
flip.
simple, guys.
sounds like competitive League of Legends right there. So, next week off screen there's going to be Catalyst Blaze versus Dag Scarlet. Where do you think that's going, Doctor?
Oh, that one should be tough too because they're actually pretty close as well. Looking
But still
at
a 2-0, of course.
Whoever wins, it's going to be a 2-0.
Nope,
Don't know who's going to win, but it's going to be a 2-0.
I am gonna say Dag Scarlet 2-1 because Drift.
Oh, now
Drift
that
Come on, man. Hot takes.
Drift took it over Catalyst Blaze this week. We talked about the benefits of having sister teams in Blaze and Frost. Frost does seem to be the better of the two Catalyst teams. The stats prove it. But I don't think Blaze is a pushover by any means. And so I think Drift, having been very flip-floppy, I think they were looking pretty good. They can definitely take a game here because they have such high highs and such high lows that with the exception of this last week and the week before where they played the Coyotes, they've been going to game 3 the most out of most teams, I believe. And so I think last week before playoffs, you need that seeding spot because Dag Scarlet right now pretty solidly in 3rd place, whereas Blaze is down in 6th. So they need that for seeding.
All right. Well, let's hope that they fight for their lives there. Now, what about other Catalyst versus Goliath?
So under normal circumstances, Goliath is usually the big guy, David versus Goliath. This time they're definitely David. Frost is pretty solidly in 2nd place. Yeah, they kind of got slacked by Glaive Black last week. But in every matchup before then, they've shown really strong. And so I do think Frost is going to 2-0 Goliath.
All right. And are we expecting another two? Oh, right. We are. We absolutely are expecting another 2-0 in the Glaive Black versus Rift Esports. And you already said that. I mean, aside from the fact that it's becoming a little more obvious at this point just how dominant Glaive Black can be.
Yeah.
Poor Drift.
Yeah, I do kind of feel
God.
for him to have to finish out the season here. Right now, though, they are locked for playoffs because they do have 3 wins, and the only team that could knock them out of playoffs would be Glacial Rising Phoenix, who at this point only have 1 win. So mathematically, they're locked. So they are going to be top 6 teams go to playoffs. Bottom 2, unfortunately, are not going to be invited to that party. So Drift are coming into playoffs. So this is more of an ego boost or crush for them, depending on how they take it. But it is final week. They are going to have, potentially a really strong opponent, depending on Glaive. having talked to Demon, the jungler, last week after the series, they're coming in with the knowledge that they are the best team in the league. They're as humble about it as pretty much you would expect from a 6-0 team. Recognizing that last week was their toughest, opponent yet, but
That's
they're
as bad as it
confident.
gets.
Yeah, like they're super confident heading into playoffs. They think that they are really strong. They do think teams are going to level up for the best of series coming up, but they did say that they're feeling really confident that they're going to match that, if not improve it. And so yeah, this week Glaive gonna 2-0, depending on how seriously they take it. I don't expect any G2 shenanigans from them, just by their demeanor in match and out of match from what I've seen. But hey, it's the final week of the season and you're locked for first. You never know what's gonna happen.
You never know how
True.
you might troll draft. And to be perfectly honest, now might be the time to troll, not out of
Oh,
any
gosh.
disrespect, but mind you, this is the first set that Mid League will be playing on the new patch. And
Yeah, I have a lot of homework to do.
Right,
Because
we all do,
I
I
haven't.
think.
I don't think I've even
I already
downloaded
had
the
to do
patch
it.
yet. Yeah, Zephyrs did it. I don't even know if I've downloaded the patch, in all honesty. I should probably check that.
I finished an assignment, and while I was working on my assignment, I wanted nothing but to sleep. And then after I was done with the assignment, I couldn't sleep. So I wound up going and working on some things on my computer while in voice call with my friends who were playing on the new patch. And I don't think I've played a single game on the new patch yet. And basically, the whole experience was just me listening to my friend yelling about how stupid Udyr with Collector is.
There's so much more.
No,
All I've
I'm
done
pretty
for the
sure
past
this
couple
patch
days
is
is play
only
League.
Udyr with Collector, Zephyr.
I've seen some collector things, and it seems kind of
Bard
silly.
with Collector's funny.
Right.
Because you can kill with Tempered Fate now.
Oh, goodness gracious.
It's an
I don't.
execute if you get them low enough. Whatever.
Oh,
That's impressive. I have seen that clip
Weird
where the
interactions.
Graves 100 to 0's Baron with the smoke screen. That was pretty nutty. That seems imbalanced.
right.
Well, there's a lot of champions now that can 100. Whatever.
Yeah,
Whatever.
no, I
It's
do
preseason,
recall.
baby.
I do recall saying that it was going to be an assassin meta. I just don't think I properly appreciated that now everyone is the assassin.
I hate it.
Kinda. No. Sorta. Depends.
But
we did have our
anyhow.
first taste of it, right, Zephyr? We've already seen some sweet post-patch interesting interactions. Heavy League.
Yes.
Right, yeah,
Heavy League's
so
already played.
we're gonna see how Mid League deals with this whole thing. But Zephyr, you've already seen it, so let's get into Heavy League.
Do you have any warnings for me?
Get ready for top lane. Top lane, I don't know. I don't like discussing preseason because my very shallow knowledge of it is based off of most of what I've played and seen. And I can tell you as much as I want about the control of how I feel tanks are doing right now, and also the assassin metas that have come through, which is technically right from Quite, even though I don't know where she gets that knowledge from. Either way, those two things are something to really look forward to. The fact that like Malphite is the #1 top laner in solo queue right now, that's a thing. That's a thing. The thing was with Heavy League, they, like you said, were scrambling right to like they just got the new patch just as same time as everyone else. So in terms of meta, nothing had changed at all. Everyone was still picking relatively the same things as they had been doing the entire season. So to see them come through on, I don't think it's interesting. I mean,
I honestly would have expected to see.
Like, I hate it. Why is this a thing?
That actually really does surprise me though, because
Why?
my JV team was so excited to play all sorts of new things.
I think they're ready and they're just as excited as you would expect. Quite the only issue is that this is week 6 and 7 we're coming into, and I don't think like 24 hours plus maybe some PBE if one of your teammates was lucky is enough to qualify everyone being prepared to start rolling with some new stuff. I mean, example, Anarchy told us that their whole new game plan was going to be coming through like 2-3 weeks ago, and they finally enacted on it this week.
Oh,
And
no.
that gives you a time frame for how long it takes things to kind of come to fruition on a competitive scale.
Right.
Which,
So
by
do you
the way,
remember
was freaking
Gangplank
awesome.
release? Like new Gangplank release that hit
Yeah.
during EU playoffs?
Yep.
Or was it relegations?
I don't remember exactly when it occurred, but yeah.
Yeah, and all of a sudden they're just like, yeah, this one player knows how to play Gangplank, and literally nobody else has had experience with him because he's been disabled for 2 weeks. Like that's what we're heading into playoffs with.
That's quite the time.
It's gonna spice things up. I don't think it's gonna spice things up immediately, but into playoffs, you're gonna see some really interesting games.
All right.
But screw predictions about preseason randomization. We have a heavy league to discuss.
We do have a heavy league to discuss.
Last week
Zephyr.
was one of the best weeks to watch in heavy league.
Well,
only to
yes,
be
but
beat out
that's
by
because
next
you
week.
sang.
Well, I did sing. Yes, I sang on the pre-broadcast show because we do content over at Heavy League before every showing. And this week, everyone shared some art and some talent and some love towards all the teams over at Heavy League.
Only
And
quality content.
yes, my form was singing a parody of Jolene for the currently #1 team in the league, CGC.
And for
And it was
those
really
of
fun.
you who missed it, there's absolutely ways to find those Twitch clips. They should be circulating around Twitter. Just go check out our
Slam
XLNC
Poetry
Esports Twitter. Oh yeah, Diatropa's love letter was
no, it was great.
Fantastic. Listen, Zephyr, we stand musicians in this house, but
no, it was fun.
Man, Diatropa love letter might have been my favorite.
Oh no, my favorite was Beatdowns, hands down.
Beatdown
silly meme with Palm Goat.
Oh yeah, the Palm Goat meme was amazing.
I don't know how to. When we all first saw it, I'm not gonna tell anyone because I want them to go out of their way to find it. But Palm.
All right, so it is possible.
Internet curse.
It is possible that Zephyr lied to us about his internet being fixed forever, which is fantastic because that means we can now justify spending the production resources to make that Tom Kench.
I think it was pretty justified before, but like, man, what if he's gone forever? What if he's actually like dead?
Oh no. What
He posted
a
something in
terrible
Discord.
thing
that was forever ago.
that would be. I mean, admittedly, it is a little hard to talk about Heavy League without him.
Yeah. I was gonna say I'm not super involved with that league, so I'm not sure exactly what to expect there. And I know, indubitably, you had the your talk session was going to be grilling us on the new season, but
it was, and none of us know what's happening. It's kind of fantastic.
I've been so busy with like Valorant and just prepping for other things that I haven't paid attention to the new season. I was like, oh right, I don't need it. And then this podcast actually is where I was like, oh wait, mid league's on new patch this week, and I was like, oh, I guess I gotta learn. So I'm gonna print out the patch notes, which I heard were basically a short novel, and
yes.
Hit them with a highlighter. Although I did hear there are some content creators out there who did basically turn it into a podcast. So maybe I'll go listen to the podcast.
Oh, like an audio book of the patch notes.
Basically, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yep. So Discord has died for Zephyr. So
yeah.
he's now left the channel.
Yeah, Zephyr's just dead. So anyhow, let's go ahead and wrap up. And by wrap up, I kind of mean talk about Heavy League at all. Sorry, guys. Gosh, I guess if we could all get together at midnight, we could we're not going to redo this. Silly. That would be silly. That's for people who give us more money on Patreon. So yeah.
The XLN3 After Dark, is that what you're promoting right now?
Possibly. I mean, if the Patreon is going to fund me eating candy bars to eat in my sadness, yeah, sounds like a plan.
So
But
that'll be link in description below. You can feed Quite Indubitably's candy needs. Um, you can also
yes.
support the rest of the XLNC division organization, I think is the better word. The Patreon's there. You can share our links on socials. You can follow us on Twitter each individually. Those will be down below. Maybe I actually don't know how the description box is set up, but I wonder if we're actually going to get Zephyr back, or if we should
I don't
just
think we will. So let me go ahead and at least state for the record that CGC 2-0'd Mizzou because would anything else have happened? This is CGC at UIC. Honestly, it's just going to be fun to watch anyone take a game off of them at this point. Vlad Banners only did manage to take the 2-1 over Booyah Exiles, so that's a little more competitiveness. But the rest of the games were 2-0s. We had YO Boomers 2-0 Anarchy Fallen Paladins, which of course makes me very depressed, and I'm sure Zephyr would cry here with me if he were here with us.
if you were here.
But alas, we have lost him to the void of space. Lotus did 2-0 FGCU Thunderbirds, which does back my assumption that I must never bet against Lotus ever again. Because betting against Lotus is just kind of a bad idea, it would seem.
You might want to put some money down against them this week. They are playing against CGC.
Okay, so this is the week that they'll lose. Watch me say that, and then miraculously they're gonna pull off the win against CGC, and we're all going to like lose our minds.
It would be on stream too, because I pulled up the Heavy League resource page, and so the stream matchup this week is CGC versus Lotus. So if you want to put money down, I bet there are people on that broadcast team that would take it up on you, and you may lose, but at least to be on stream.
Hey, I mean, and no one's ever going to blame you for losing to CGC. That's kind of the best part. It's kind of like a safe time to experiment. And hopefully, just like the mid game doctor that we're going to see next week that we just left off talking about, the Glaive Black versus Drift Esports, in that kind of matchup where it's like both teams are safe, there is a team here which is historically very dominant. I think both teams in that case, as in this case here in Heavy League, have a strong incentive to do some experimenting. I don't think
Yeah.
they have too much to lose, and I think they have everything to gain in gaining some actual on air, on stage experience playing this new patch and testing out some of the more competitive picks this patch.
Yeah, I think at least this week, since it is the last week of both regular seasons as we head into playoffs, basically the victories this week are going to come from the teams that have played the most in this last week since the patch. The ones that have the most experience, whether it's as a team or even just individually, because we see a lot of times like a single lane can really take over the game. And before we lost Zephyr, he was explaining how the new patch comes into play in regards to that in, top lane and the assassins. So, I mean, it's going to be whichever team has the most experience playing into those types of deficits and things like that. And, I think there are teams out there who have probably been spamming solo queue trying to get that experience. And they'll come into this last week looking really, really good. And then we'll have our playoffs, which will have, that much more practice on it. I think we'll get a balance patch about halfway through playoffs as well if our current patching schedule holds up. So, I mean, that could potentially throw another wrench into things depending on how it goes. But I mean, that's League of Legends, right? Like the top teams are the ones that, adapt quickest. And hey, speaking of adaptation, we got Zephyr back.
Wow. Zephyr has returned to us?
Dude, I can fix all the Wi-Fi problems in the world, and it doesn't matter.
Nothing matters, Zephyr, but welcome back.
At least without when it's not Wi-Fi crashing, I still have all the audio files and everything still working. I don't know why OBS Ninja is down though. It's still working on my end.
Do you want to send me a new link just in case so we can see your face again?
Yeah, because you're gonna need it.
I see. Well, while Zephyr works on that,
Please catch me up,
you
Doctor,
know,
on whatever the hecko you were discussing.
We were actually discussing the broadcasted match of this week for Heavy.
Which is super exciting.
It's CGCU versus Lotus, which I'm sure you're aware. But QuiteIndubitably was actually going to bet money on Lotus again this week because it's a stream match. It's a new patch. And I told her that you would graciously take her up on that offer.
To bet? Like for who?
Like
to
cash
bet
money.
CGC is going to win? Yeah, I'll bet
Yes.
that.
Yeah,
I'll bet that every
would...
day of the week. Are you kidding me? Have you seen this team? Did you see me write a song about them?
I did. I saw it on Twitter even.
I really wish we could see you right now, Zephyr.
You do, but
Yeah.
I've sent it over to get everything all set up. Either
Yes.
way,
Okay, let's see.
you can hear me, and that's all that really matters.
Let's
for
see if we're
anyone who's
going
listening.
to magically see Zephyr after this.
I don't know how you run things over there.
Oh, hey,
oh my gosh. Whoa.
Okay, I made it work. I made it work. We can magically see Zephyr. All right. And let's pretend we can see Doctor's face. Wow, we can see all of her faces again. Wow.
I was petting the cat, and I didn't realize that was out of frame.
Oh, what a good kitty. All
That's
right.
so cute. All right. Heavy League. Before I was so abruptly cut off.
Heavy League.
They knew you were going to speak blasphemy.
Yeah, I know.
No,
Heavy League this week was awesome.
While I was gone, I just sort of gave an overview of what games happened. So, Zephyr, let's get into the meat of it. What games were most exciting to you?
Oh, well, I mean, so I believe we explicitly streamed Booyah versus FGCU Thunderbirds, which was an insane kind of series of games. It was a 4-hour stream.
Is that not normal for you guys?
No, absolutely not. Our streams end 2:30 usually. So Booyah versus FGCU Thunderbirds was intense through and through and through. A lot of it though was due to some 6 or 7 pauses from the players resetting their computers every couple minutes. Booyah eventually came out on top, which was the expected outcome here. FGCU was able to throw one back to them in game 2, but that, in my opinion, let me pull it up here real quick. I was a little disappointed because they essentially had everything going in their pockets through game 1 and game 3, and it looked like the stereotypical Booyah that they're known for. But then they drafted this disgusting late game comp, which is not something that Booyah typically excels in. They're very one-dimensional. Their early game success transitioned that into a mid-game snowball into a win, right? Nice. And they went with Twitch, Lulu, Orin, this is not their style. And of course, Lulu and Twitch in the bot lane alone, within the first 15 minutes of the game, died 6 times combined to Samira. All of that gold went on to her.
That's unfortunate. Is kind of ridiculous. And to add to that, the fact that Lulu's not necessarily doing super well. A lot of enchanters aren't doing really well in the new patch because this patch is basically about who gets their super powered items first. And as it turns out, there's kind of nothing that's super great for enchanters. There is that staff of flowing water, which incentivizes things like healing over time. So as it turns out, a lot of the enchanters designed to negate burst, like Lulu, just don't have items that are designed for them this patch.
Good. Heck 'em. I hate enchanters.
Oh, okay. Like I said, it wasn't that good, and then it was a 22-7 game, and it was super heavily FGCU favored. And then game 3, Booyah came back, and they showed us how they like to play it. They gave themselves an Akali, an Ezreal. They put, I believe it was Slurps back on Ezreal. And guy just absolutely dominated. Which, by the way, Booyah had a completely different roster going into this game. First time we've ever seen 3 of the players changed up. Korn and Brand Z were still in mid and support, but you had, I believe, the 3 top, jungle, and top all switched around. And it was actually their old roster from last season in the Heavy League. They brought them back.
That is a massive
change. I'm trying to think. I believe it was Slurp's 80 carry. And then, I still have my notes from last week sitting here. Slurps, Graham, and Sandflame were playing the game this week. which they performed really, really well for coming in literally week 6. I mean, they said it themselves that they put it all together within the last 2 to 3 days, which was huge.
Oh, wow.
That's a mad scramble. We don't typically see decisions that drastically being made on such a short time frame. Do you know much about what motivated this change, Zephyr?
I don't know exactly. I haven't been able to speak with Booyah directly. And to be honest, I don't think they really care at this point because at the end of the day, these players still have like their general cohesion and understanding of each other from last season. I believe Slurps is actually new. Someone pointed that out to me, I believe. Either way, still same relative players. Everyone's kind of on the same playing field. It's not a really big deal that they made the change this late because they already kind of have the know it of what's going on. And so they still worked out. And while they probably shouldn't have lost that second game, it paints a picture for, what is to expect out of Booyah going into playoffs. And it's, like I said, very one-dimensional. So anyone who knows that, oh, wow, early is their strength. Okay, just ban out early success and then play to something
Play for late.
Yeah, play for late, and suddenly Booyah looks a whole lot worse. Either way, speaking of hasty decisions, a decision that wasn't quite so hasty, like I brought up earlier, Anarchy finally came through on their promise. I'm so sorry to say, but Array is no longer with the team. Array was, I did not quite get to catch the name of who made the change and who they played through with, but Anarchy Fallen Paladins did make a monumental switch in the jungle role, and it has paid off so well. They beat Lotus this week. They beat Lotus, the second best team in the league, which no one expected. Everyone expected Anarchy to lose through this one because, especially after the last couple weeks, they have not been looking great. And instead, they turn everyone's tail on their heads and come out with a victory. Now, I will say game 1 was a heck of a fluke because if I want you to go look at game 1, if you have that goal graph, because we put it up on stream because we were terrified. We were streaming Booyah versus FGCU, but we still went back and put this goal graph on the screen during the break because this is like a sine wave.
A real up and down. A sine wave is a way to interpret what I see here.
And look at the very end. Tell me what you see at the very end.
A massive valley and a steep upward climb.
Yes. There was a almost 6k gold lead in favor of Lotus going into the final bits and pieces of this match, and they lost it all, and Anarchy came out with a win. And then they took that motivation and they blew through the second game as well. I believe that game they had a 14k gold lead, which is absolutely insane.
Truly wild. By the way, I want to shout out that while Zephyr was gone, I basically only made things worse by I think I was reading out last week's post game. So you would have heard the completely wrong matchups earlier, and we're just going to pretend that never happened at all.
What?
Oh yeah, I was literally like, oh, let's read the games that happened in Heavy League. Gee, I didn't really study them super well before recording.
Good job.
So
I'm proud of you.
I was looking at anything, and I can't believe it didn't okay, part of me was thinking
your head?
yeah, so actually I was looking at the standings and I was like, Lotus versus FGCU, in my brain I was like, I could have sworn Anarchy was about to play Lotus because I'm last week wasn't that when I talked about I'm not allowed. I did, I really did, and I was so confused. But this makes so much more sense now that we're talking about it, and then I see the real standings where it's okay, Anarchy Fallen Paladins did win against Lotus because I recall. Oh God, I don't remember when these were posted.
Do you recall?
I don't recall anything, and Zephyr's gone because he's that shocked. Oh wait, Zephyr just momentarily froze. Yeah, no, I recall nothing apparently. I guess this week has taken a larger toll on me than I thought it did. I thought I was feeling free and happy now that my essay's done, but that's untrue, clearly. But no, I did think I had this memory of waking up and looking at my phone and seeing that Anarchy Fallen Paladins had won against Lotus and thinking, oh, thank goodness, it worked for me to not officially bet against Lotus because that never works for me. Yeah, no, my brain was very confused. Wow, what a great podcast this week we
All
have,
right,
guys.
amazing. Either way, to just wrap everything for Heavy League, I guess, up then, Mizzou did not take the victory over Vlad. They did take a game, which is very common from them. They'll find like one game, but they don't usually go to the full 2-0. Vlad came back with the reverse, and that was expected, and it actually puts them in great position next week. CGC, of course, 2-0'd WYO Boomers. No one really expected anything else there.
Oh, wow.
And then we just discussed Booyah FGCU. That was competitive, but Booyah eventually finally came through, even with the massive roster changes, and then Anarchy's looking like a whole new team. So with all that in mind,
one player swap, by the way, which is kind of
the
nutty.
most important player swap necessary for that team, though, given that everyone else has been performing extremely adequately, and an Array many times over has been a valley for the team in terms of success, and we've brought it up every single time they've played on stream, and every single time we've come onto the podcast. I feel like it's just, let's go look at Array. Oh, he performed well for the first 3 minutes, and then went like 0-9. Right,
Aren't the first 3 minutes your first clear,
buddy? First like 10 minutes. All right. Either way, the results from this week, as funny as they may be, have made some massive implications going into next, because Lotus, which was kind of the confirmed number 2 here, no longer is within that reach, given that if they had won this game, it was more likely that they were going to find themselves into second place, but they didn't. They lost both games. They didn't even manage to take a single win off here. And as a result, they're now 4-0 tied with Vlad Banners. And the thing is, going into next week, Lotus is in their toughest matchup yet against CGC. Right. And if Lotus is, losing games here to Anarchy, it does not bode well for what will be most likely the train that is CGC. So with that thought in mind, I'm just theory crafting now here, because this is all this week 7 really is for me. CGC takes the game. They go 7-0, high rollers. They're number 1. Lotus is now 4, or I believe. Yes. Right. They're 4-1. No, they're 4-3. My apologies. Yeah. They're 4-3 going into next week if they lose to CGC, right? Thing is, if Vlad Banners only take the game against FGCU, which they most likely will, and they've shown that they're definitely a team capable of doing so, they switch seeding. They take second place with one win, because Lowe's couldn't come out on top this week. Now, all this gets thrown into a whole wrench of things if, Vlad loses and some chance or Lotus finds a victory over CGC. But on the other turnstile of that victory is like, if FGCU comes out on top, they secure their seeding into playoffs. But the thing is, since they're most likely not going to find that, victory, they have to worry about WYO Boomers, because WYO Boomers is going up against Mizzou, which that should be a game, while very competitive, most likely. YO should come out on top of Mizzou, and if they do, FGCU is actually knocked out of playoffs. This is a team who went second last year.
Wow.
Went all the way to
Right.
finals, and there's a high chance that they get knocked out here.
And
then Booyah. Yeah, go ahead.
we began this whole thing with extremely high
I'm just dying.
expectations for FGCU. And
Right.
every time they perform, we sing their praises here. But here they're looking at not being
No, they
allowed to
suck.
perform anymore.
I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. They're 2-4.
Wow.
They have the same score as WYO Boomers. This is not a team that looks contestable for finals in any way.
Tell us how you really feel, Zephyr.
You did.
But
It's my ex-wife.
Wait.
I'm drawing a parallel.
Are
It's
you
an
okay?
analogy. I had an ex-girlfriend who broke up with me in May, but still break my heart over thinking
oh
about
my
it.
goodness. Zephyr.
Booyah versus Anarchies this
All
week.
right,
They're currently tied.
You know
So-
what? I already messed up Heavy League by reading off last week's nonsense and not even realizing it. So you know what? This is no longer the Heavy League segment. This is let's talk about Zephyr's Broken Heart segment. Zephyr, you have the floor.
You're just moving it on. We are
No.
at the end of Heavy League already, so why not?
So
No,
I'm gonna kind of flip this, and I was going through the Discords, and I noticed that Seraphine was finally legal for mid league this week. And doing the
thought that was
math,
going a different direction.
No, I don't care about your broken heart at all.
No,
But
Oh,
different.
I thought this was going in Seraphine broke Zephyr's heart direction.
I thought he said Seraphine was legal. I did not know where we were
Oh, Zephyr,
going.
please, goodness.
Jesus Christ. But I was going to ask you if she got played in heavy, because she was actually legal
No.
for play on her day, and she was actually, if I'm reading this correctly.
Wait, yeah, I think she did get played.
It
Didn't
was in the Anarchy Fallen Paladins versus
yeah,
Lotus
didn't
match
Lotus
one.
play
maybe.
Seraphine
Yeah,
in like game
and
2?
Oh, they did, and they lost.
they did lose to a Maokai support, which I don't know, maybe new patch is nutty, because every Maokai support I've seen on old patch kind of fell flat.
All
But
I will
Oh,
tell you is that
so
Maokai is like the 5th highest top laner right now.
so here's what you need to
good.
understand
Tanks are
about
big boys now.
tanks right now. First of all, Locket is going to become, mark my words, I mean, Locket was already really strong, right? It has an incredibly useful active, particularly for team fighting and competitive play, but Locket got buffed, and especially with the fact that ability haste has been added to Locket. Typically, one of the things you were missing out on playing support when you decided to opt for that Locket is you were getting your abilities coming off cooldown no faster. Now, Locket actually contributes to your ability haste, and it has those fantastic defensive stats and that active. So Locket is already looking like an incredibly strong support item, incentivizing you to play anything that does well with a Locket. And I don't think Maokai got to the point that he was building this. I think he might have been on the way to building it.
So he
With
did
that
pick
Kindle
it up
gem I
in
see.
this match. Yeah, so he does have the Locket of the Iron Solari, the Bulwark of the Mountain, Kindle Gem, Thorn Mail, Merc
Right.
Treads. Man, I don't like these item
Something you
portraits
need to
whatsoever.
understand is that
You get
Sunfire
used to it.
is nutty right now
I love it.
on this new
I've only been
patch.
playing top lane.
In
It's
order,
addictive.
in order to kill someone, if you're not getting 100 to 0'd in League of Legends, one of the silliest ways to do it right now is just to build Sunfire and stand next to someone. I had a friend complaining
Oh my
about
god,
a
play
team,
Orin.
a team that basically built almost all tanks and then just decimated my friend's team by CCing them and standing next to them. The burn on Sunfire, which now has something of a new name that I don't remember, but it's Sunfire, guys. It's Sunfire King.
Sunfire Aegis.
Ah,
I'm pretty
that.
sure.
So
That
very
sounds
reminiscent
right.
of the old way to play Evelyn, like back in the seasons
Yeah, I was about
one,
to say this is an Evelyn reminiscent kind of meta.
which he had true stealth
Yeah.
and would just buy 6 Sunfires and just float throughout the team fight, doing a billion damage.
Oh no.
Well, the thing is, I've been playing Orin religiously now. I stand for Orin, and I always
Good.
have. But
You
the
lose to
thing
Shen, though.
is, I don't care if I lose to Shen. I get like 70 max stacks of Aegis when it upgrades with the Mythics, because he upgrades Mythics now, and he upgrades Sunfire Aegis. And the thing is,
That's
he can upgrade everyone else's Sunfire Aegis.
That's too much.
It's disgusting. I love it because he upgrades it and it gets, because if you don't know how Aegis works right now, you essentially get an immolate stack based off of you dealing or taking damage to enemies or epic monster champions. Either way, once you get to maximum stacks, you will deal your immolate stack damage per second for the next 3 seconds. It's amazing.
It's
And
a
the thing
lot.
is, once Orin gets to his level 14 or level 13 kind of upgrade track field, the dude starts burning at literally 70 to like 80 damage on that second passive. And if you have another tank in the game, both of you are doing it suddenly. It's insane.
Call me when season starts and I don't deal with pre-patch anymore.
You know, it's gonna be kind of a Wild West for a while.
I'm here.
And I do think
I
it's
hate
interesting
this.
because I do remember going into this patch, you know, something that a lot of people anticipated was that Sunfire was kind of gonna be pretty good, but nothing else was really getting buffed for the tanks, and so many tank busting items were being added. My assumption, and I think the assumption of a lot of people that I heard speak on this matter, was to more or less assume the point of tanks in this meta was just to not be one shot by all of the massive damage, but they
You
weren't
can't
going to be
even.
necessarily pretty tanky.
Reddit was so
Um,
wrong.
I mean,
Shocker.
okay,
Not a shocker, but that literally
like,
was like a no, it was a tale as old as time. They were chanting about how tanks were gonna suck and it was the complete
yeah.
opposite.
And I kind of believed it, right? I definitely
You
believed
fool.
that the new ADC items were going to give ADCs a way to shred down tanks. So
Nope.
as long as ADCs could just not get one shot by the assassins, they could just rip apart any tank that they pleased. No, Sunfire damage, go burr. And
AD carriers aren't
now
allowed to have
top
fun.
laners are all assassins.
Sunfire damage, go burr.
Yeah,
Completely
I'm
understandable.
only here for the most technical, proper analysis of League of Legends items.
Well, I mean, at this point, not many of us actually really understand what the heck is going on yet. I've done
Yeah.
my best at this point. Not a lot has really changed across the board. It's very little minute things. Like crit's very bad on 80 carries right now. So your carries who are doing well on that role typically aren't supposed to itemize crit or have different routes for crit, like Ash, whose crit doesn't matter because it's always going to route towards her slow and passive and whatnot. That ability versus something like Jin, who can take advantage of Assassin's items instead of having to build the full route of 80 carries
Right.
like everyone else.
And that
It's
is
very
what Jin
little
is doing right
changes.
now, Zephyr. I don't know if you've noticed this at all, but Jin's back to building lethality. That's what Jin does now.
Yes. Oh, yes. He has to. If he wants to stay competitive in the bot lane, he needs to. Because right now, the itemization down there is god awful for the pricing.
Sounds
You're
about right.
spending way too much money to reach your power spikes as an AD carry. 3,400 gold for a Randuin's, which does literally nearly the same thing as it did last patch. That's not worth it in my eyes.
Right. And one of the issues we might see is if Riot were to try to just directly reduce the price,
Suddenly
suddenly
they're really good,
everyone else, yeah, suddenly everyone else is just going to buy crit instead. I do think um, Riot does need to find a way to get marksmen these items on a more timely scale, because I do think that the new marksman items really do have potential to bring marksmen back into the game. They just need to do it before someone already steamrolls them over. All right, you disagree with me, Zephyr.
Doctor does too. I think the new marksman itemization is all but just as terrible as it has been for a while.
Is that
And it,
so?
it fundamentally boils down to 80 carry players aren't allowed to have fun. And
No.
it is I mean it
Glorified
kind of memey.
minions.
Yeah, like I meme it quite hard as an 80 carry player, but like if we go back through the seasons and you'll listen to Reddit and be like, well, 80 carries have always been strong. And they used to be strong. That's very true. But the
Not for the last
itemization,
2 years.
yeah, it's been a hot minute, and the itemization throughout these last couple of years has been split up to unhit or crit, and if you don't fit in one of those two, A, you don't get played, and B, only one strong at any given time. And for the most part, it's been a lot of on hit. Like we've seen Caitlyn, who is very crit based, and Kaisa, Varus, and Ash are the on
It
hits.
bounces. It
Yeah,
goes
and
back
so
and forth constantly.
but like the new items, with them being so expensive, and with the a lot of the marksmen not even being able to really take full advantage of them because they're so expensive, that like you guys said, you can't just make them cheap, because then everybody builds them, and then we get Zed with like 100% crit chance, and we've
No
seen
one
how that
wants
goes.
We
that.
already know how bad Assassin's Edge is
Yeah,
on this meta.
And
so
So
let's speak a
80 carries
little
are murked.
more abstractly here. The reason AD carry is struggling and has been struggling is because the pace of team fights is really fast. And just from an archetypical level, the point to having an AD carry is you have something of a glass cannon which provides sustained DPS. That is the point of AD carry over something like Burst Mage or Assassin, right?
Which you'll even get arguments on that.
It is your
People will
insurance for
oh,
damage after the bursty stuff goes on cooldown. Sorry, Doctor, what were you saying?
people will argue about the point of an AD carry because there are those who think that you're correct in that it's that constant DPS, output in a team fight, and there
I
are
was about
those
to
that'll
argue it.
yeah.
I'm one of those people. I hate the fact that AD carries have become so team reliant now that
Well, yeah.
you have to. For the last season, like some will argue with me and say that that's a necessary evil to keep the role under a power check,
But
right?
also, backliners need a front line. Like, what else is there to life, Zephyr?
Well, so I
But
was gonna say
I
that
also I
hold
think
on,
that without a front line, they become literally garbage, like literally
that's
trash doo doo
the
useless. And it's like
master menu.
you have to have a front line now.
Yes.
You don't get a choice. And the
Yeah.
thing is, players have so much more agency in every other role to do something that they want on a one-to-one agency versus AD carries who have to have someone else help them and hold their hand through certain situations, which is the worst feeling in all of League of Legends. When you cannot control the fate of your game and you truly have to rely on someone else to be your full potential versus every other role getting to do it themselves.
I mean,
Yeah.
I
I
hate
But I
would
mean,
that.
there are those
say,
who also say that AD carries only exist to take down towers, and they have been so
oh,
far and
right.
away outscaled in that
Oh,
world
yeah.
Yeah,
as
that they
well.
suck at that
That
now.
doesn't
Yeah.
happen
Wow.
anymore.
God.
That just doesn't happen
So like
anymore.
there
Everyone else
is
can take
no
towers now. Every
yeah.
single mage does so much damage to
Every
towers,
tank
it's
has
nutty.
demolished.
Tanks have demolished.
Supports have demolish and do more damage. Like
What
AD
is the
carries,
point of an AD
they
carry?
don't have a role anymore. Effectively, is what it is, and you 9 times out of 10 are better off putting a AD bruiser mid and taking an AP or AP mage bottom as your carry. Like 9 times out of 10, that is effectively the better role because you get better itemization, you spike better, and you take towers better. Like it's
Yeah.
AD carry as a role
Right.
is quickly
Flawed.
coming to not exist.
At the end of the day, the AD carry role is always going to be cursed by one crucial issue. At the heart of it, the AD's damage is truly unavoidable, in my opinion. It is an auto attack based champion, and typically when it comes to that, in the strength of situations where the AD is in the meta, it doesn't feel great to play against. I will agree and say, even while I love playing ADC, the best metas are when ADs are weak. If you play anything else other than the AD carry, it feels really good to play League when they're out of meta because consistent damage, which is unavoidable, a point and click system that constantly just stacks up in DPS against you feels really bad because
Yeah,
there's
there's a
nothing you can
reason
do to
nobody
avoid
likes
it.
playing against Tryndamere.
And
Right, exactly. Same concept.
true, but Zephyr, that's why I feel like it is a necessary thing that AD carries cannot be independent.
But that's the
Because
For
thing. They're not
solo queue,
strong enough
yes.
anymore for it to matter. It doesn't matter if they're independent or dependent now because they don't have the damage to even be a contestable meta. They're not scary ever, in my opinion.
Yeah.
right.
Every time I play mid and I play like Oriana, like you just shockwave the AD carry and all of a
They're
sudden
done.
like the team fight's still going on. Like, when AD carries are strong, if they die, the team fight's over. That team loses. Now the AD carry just kind of exists, and that's why for so long we've seen utility carries and Ash Varus like be towards the top. Even Jin to an extent, like yeah, he does, big boom damage, but if you break him down like super far, he's a
Right.
utility
He
carry.
is, right? He has that root, and the best of Jins are the Jins who are landing
Great
these
zone
really
control.
clutch,
Mhm.
long range roots. And his ulti, while everyone's running away from the bullets because they do a lot of damage if he's fed, and the fourth shot
Not
is
really.
scary. Well, guess what? Those bullets slow like heck. That is utility. ADCs are being played like supports. They're kind of damagey supports for the team, which is silly because
And yet your enchanter
ADCs,
support will always do more
yeah,
damage.
ADCs are generally designed to not have too much CC. There's a reason that um, Jin CC is one route that requires damage to have been dealt first and some slows, and Ashe has some slows, and then the ultimate, I would say, um, adds an unintentional pun, the ultimate ADC CC ability, the classic Ash Arrow.
I mean,
Yeah,
look at
one of
Ash
those.
builds for the most part. Like, if you build Blade of the Ruin King, you're still technically correct, but most of the time people go for a cooldown reduction build
Right.
because the ultimate's the more
Yeah,
important part.
you're just spamming Arrow. You're a CC bot. You're a long range CC bot with, I guess, a little bit of damage assurance. But if ADCs are to be played in any way that fulfills the fantasy of being the long range DPS squishy, League's going to have to see longer team fights. That's sort of the long and short of it, because if team fights are resolving within 1.5 cycles of abilities being used,
Or I have a simpler solution: increase the attack speed cap.
Ooh.
Why
and
haven't we gone that direction?
okay, what happens to people like
Y'all
Camille
remember
and
old Kog'Maw?
Udyr? Like, all of these people that we
No, only
people,
for marksman.
all of these, why only for marksmen? How
Well,
would you do
so
that?
Team
counter
fight so
that.
fast, just have more attack during team
I
fight.
don't think in a world where
I mean,
items can go past the point of attack speed cap right now, I don't think you see bruisers going those items because the ROI just diminishes so hard. Like Camille's power is being able to proc the Sheen procs on her Q, and more attack speed doesn't do that for her. Udyr's kind of gated by his abilities inherently when it comes to attack speed. Like Tiger Stance, you get the enhanced damage on just like the first couple seconds of it, so more attack speed doesn't benefit him. Whereas Marksman, because your main damage is those auto attacks, having more of them faster helps you. And I don't think any other role really benefits from sacrificing, HP or health or
actually don't
armor.
think it's a terrible idea now that I think about it.
Yeah,
Like, from
I
a
think there's
reasonable
actually some
point,
merit there. I mean, look at the marksmen that do already have that. Kog'Maw. Kog'Maw breaks the attack speed cap.
he doesn't
And
anymore. He hasn't for a long time.
oh, he doesn't. Am I dumb?
Dude, I thought that for like a season, and then I learned
I
that was
thought you
like way
could
back in
still
season
I thought you
6.
could still
I
have him
haven't
break the
seen
cap with
Kog'Maw.
like a Lulu W with Ardent.
Well,
Is that not
that's
true?
there used to be, you could literally turn your Kog'Maw from 2.5 attack speed to 5. That was
Yeah,
what it used to be. You can't do that anymore.
I thought his W still broke cap, but
Hasn't
I
been
also
that way
haven't
for
seen
like
him played
4
marksman.
seasons.
I haven't seen him played marksman since then, I guess, because
Exactly. He
he's
hasn't
always
been in
played
the meta.
AP mid.
Right. I mean, he did have a bit of a brief comeback is a
We've
strong
seen him
word.
throw in a couple times when it's only when Lulu's paired with him and he's got the
Yeah.
right setup of a team. But other than that,
Right.
he's relatively useless. He just benefits from the fact that he does have the mixed damage and can go off hit in comparison to having a route full crit. And he is a turret, essentially. At the end of the day, though, I do think this kind of train of thought is the right direction for AD carries, because at the end of the day, if you're not willing to let them assume more damage in any way or find better rotations in terms of skill prowess, just give them more auto attacks. It ups the skill
There's a
ceiling
lot of
too,
merit there.
because the faster you auto attack, the more likely you are to make a mistake. Think about that.
True. But also suddenly kiting becomes a lot easier than it used to be.
No, it becomes really hard.
Yeah, it becomes
In
harder
my
the more
opinion, it
attack
becomes
speed you
really
have.
hard.
Like
I guess
you can look at a
it
champion like
becomes hard
Kalista.
in an actions per minute type sense, where you are trying to click in a bajillion places at once. But I would say it becomes easy in terms of turning your brain on and actually knowing when
What to
you get
do?
more
Yeah.
out of attacking and when you get more out of kiting back.
Yeah, I mean, play Kalista once and you'll notice the difference between, kiting and being a turret, largely due to a bug in her kit, but you get more attack speed when you're standing still than when you're kiting. And so, that could be, the type of decisions every ED carry player gets to make in that world.
All right, Doctor, I have a question though. Bug
Top
or
tier AD carry.
feature?
What the hell am I listening to?
Since it's Kalista, Riot probably sees it as a feature, but Kalista, in my opinion, is one of the more I want to say forgotten, but like unlucky works too. Like when you compare to like the troughs of League of Legends champion balance and design, like there's Evelynn, like Urgot Udyr, and like Kalista, and like just like how they've been nerfed and adjusted throughout their lifespan
Rise.
to like Rise, I guess, because we've seen some really bad Rise iterations that just like they don't know what to do with them, so they just kind of shelf them, and like nobody will ever get the Evelynn treatment again, thank God. But like Kalista needs a rework, and she's just kind of forgotten at this point.
Go off one direction too far, suddenly she's a powerhouse. Go off the other direction, she's literally never played.
You know, some champions are just like that. They are so powerful when they get to do a particular niche thing that they're good at. Usually this is a particular niche thing that is disproportionately good at pro play, or they can't be used at all. You know, like Rise, which we just mentioned. Rise and Callista are both those kinds of champions where when they're strong, they're all you see in competitive as well as being just ridiculously strong.
Yeah.
So out of 100, 100 and no, this can't be right. This is 100. Oh, that's rank. 179 champions. We're not at that many champions.
Are
like 151 or something.
Yeah, 150-ish sounds a bit more right to me.
All right, so I looked up champion.gg and they have 179 champions for some reason.
Of course.
But
maybe one of them's
has
old.
Maybe a double up, but yeah, Kalista has a 1.27 pick percentage. More than Shen apparently, which I find incredible. Oh, that's support Shen. That's why there's 179. They break it up by roles too. But yeah, so she's not doing so hot. But this is our longest podcast ever. So
no,
pop
it's not.
bubbly.
No, we have technically gone longer, but that being said, any final statements before we wrap things up?
Come watch Heavy next week. It's CGC versus Lotus. It's the most exciting matchup probably we'll have, roughly. It probably will be a 2-0, but hey, man, XLNC Heavy League always offers really, really great content every single week, and you should check in just for that aspect of it.
All right. Well, that's a lot at stake, and thank you for tuning in and bearing with us this long as I, your host, QuiteIndubitably, was a dum-dum, and Zephyr possibly solved all of League of Legends.
Did I?
Attack speed. Congrats, Zephyr, you solved League of Legends.
Or my Nobel Prize.
I was going to suggest Riot hire you, but sure, Nobel Prize, let's do that. All right. Again,
coincidentally, that would make it easier for Riot to hire him.
Yeah, I was about to
because they can now be like, we have a Nobel laureate on our staff. Take that, Apple.
Take that,
on
Apple.
Their balance team.
Yes, Apple, their primary competitor. Anyhow, thanks for putting up with our shenanigans, and we'll see you next week. Hope you tune in.
Love you.
Peace.